What's going on, guys? Tobin here with you. Thanks for checking out the channel. Much appreciated. Tobin and Leroy coming at you live every single weekday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. You guys can watch that on the WQAM YouTube page. You can also watch it on Twitch, twitch.tv/Miami560WQAM, and listen to it on all your podcast platforms. Going to be boots on the ground tonight as the Heat are taking on the Utah Jazz. Off that very emotional roller coaster of a weekend that was, coming up clutch against the Cleveland Cavaliers in a much-needed win. And then, of course, the heartbreaker that was that Magic loss with Jimmy's heroics going to waste, which was obviously, the big topic coming out of that game. But there was some other things that were very interesting from it. And I would say most interesting out of all of it was the return of Kyle Lowry, who was coming off the bench. First time in a decade that Kyle Lowry had come off the bench for the Heat. He had missed 15 games previous. Gabe Vincent really solidified in that starting role. So this is kind of an Eric Spoelstra special where he does like to typically keep guys in the roles that they are in, outside of like having a little bit of a reset, like a Kevin Love coming into the fold and, them probably always wanting Caleb Martin to come off the bench anyway. Although I don't know, how the results have really bared on that so far. But it will be it's going to be interesting to see how long they do go with Kyle coming off the bench, if that is going to become a regular thing, or if they do go back to a spot where he is going to be starting these games. It sounds like a conversation that, was productive between him and Eric Spoelstra. I was reading in Barry Jackson's column where, he says, it was great to be back with the guys. It's been a long process. I appreciate the team being patient because I wanted to play, but it was one of those things where you didn't want to come back and play and have any setbacks. The staff team, we worked together to make sure I could get back and play without any setbacks and just be smart about everything. He then was talking about the conversation that him and Spo had, and he says, at this point, I know in my heart I'm a starter. Spo and I talked, and he wants to make sure that I'm healthy and not have a change to the lineup again and change the rotation. The great communicator, the great coach that he is, I respect it. He says, if you're going to come back, I want to make sure that you're healthy and be successful about it. We had a great talk. So he says, whatever it takes, I'm all in. Whether it's 15 minutes, 30 minutes, starting, coming off the bench, we'll figure it out. Whatever it takes to win basketball games. For me, it's about being a professional and any help and helping in any capacity that I can help. So as Kyle Lowry is kept, he has kept everything very professional publicly with Miami. Any rumblings or rumors or fodder that, that they are at an impasse or that they were not in a good place, or professionally or whatever. I don't know. I do know that, this is probably been a frustrating year for Kyle in that he did come into this season with hopes of things being a lot easier than they were last year with all the stuff, that he was dealing with personally last year, with it being a new team, coming from being an icon in Toronto to, you're supposed to be this last piece, and then you're sitting there, you can't really produce in the playoffs for Miami. So, I know a lot's been made of like his comments about Pat Riley's comments about losing weight and getting into better shape. Look, it's not like Kyle Lowry didn't get into better shape or didn't get himself in good shape coming into this offseason. He did. The guy was busting his ass to come into the year. It just hasn't gone the way that he's thought. And now you think about just the injuries that kind of pile up. Look, he's a smaller point guard who, going through those trees, taking all those bumps and bruises. It's probably tough when you get into your upper 30s about holding up like that. I guess the question at this point is, though, like, what can Miami expect from Kyle? If they can get what they got from him in this last game, especially from a shooting perspective, and I'm talking about, like, if Kyle Lowry can come in and spot you a couple from downtown, it's, 3 of 6 is probably even a little bit greedy, but if he can give you those every now and then where he is giving you that production from downtown, giving a lift anywhere. Look, you're talking about a guy who is statistically, what is he, top 13 all time in 3-point makes or something like that. So it's something he's always been good at, and something the Heat need a definite lift in everywhere in any way that they can get it. And, certainly if Gabe continues his struggles, because it hasn't been the smoothest of rides for Gabe Vincent, then you do have this other plan to get to. Still has a very good relationship with Jimmy Butler, and I think Jimmy really wants this to work out with Kyle because that is his guy. That is a guy. He did step up and kind of go to bat for him at the trade deadline when there were a lot of rumors around, and joking or not joking, Jimmy did say he ain't going anywhere, and so I do think that your star player does want this to work out with him, and he does want people that he can trust, and you do want to have that stuff work out. It's going to be interesting though, like where Spo is at with this whole thing. This was Eric after the loss to the Magic and Kyle Lowry's return performance.
Yeah, that was not on my card, for sure. He feels fine right now. It's great, to have him out there. I scanned a couple things on the box score and I saw that and I was like, oh man, that definitely wasn't, the plan. But he's prepared himself. He'll take care of himself. He'll be ready to go.
Yeah, I mean, like you think about the idea that they go into this thing and they're like, all right, we're gonna have this plan to not, burn you out minutes wise, and then you play him a starter's load essentially, which is interesting because they were at a point the last time around with Kyle Lowry where he wasn't getting starters minutes. They were basically benching him every fourth quarter. He was scoring, in the single digits every single game. And so for his return game to be that was certainly eye-opening and interesting. And I know part of that had to do with Tyler Hero dealing with food poisoning or whatever. But still weird nonetheless that you go into a situation where he even said after the game, he says, I didn't expect to play 36 minutes, but Tyler was unfortunately out with food poisoning. So, that's what you get. I mean, that was an interesting situation. We'll be interested to see, like, in this last run of games, what are we talking about? We're talking right now 13 games left. 13 games left for Miami. A couple at home this week against the Jazz and against the Memphis Grizzlies. What will be the piece that really, kind of steps up for Miami? You got Cody Zeller, who's dealing with this broken nose, so not really sure where he stands on the injury front. According to reporters, after taking that just blast to the chops, oof, I mean that was tough. Cody is going to be out for this next game. Duncan Robinson remains sick, and then everybody else is questionable. So you probably will get a lot more of Omer Yurtseven, which is going to be interesting to see. I want to see what Omer can bring to the table and what it looks like with him as the backup center and having those minutes. And the one thing with Omer that's going to be interesting with him and Kyle, I do think that Yurt and Lowry do have good chemistry. I think if you remember back to that like 13 game stretch where it was really Kyle and kind of everybody else. Kyle really got Big Yurt in comfortable spots and good spots where he could be productive. So if they remain on that second unit together, I like that unit. I do like that pairing of them together. I think that's going to be an interesting one for the minutes they get on the floor together. This was Yurt after the game on Bally Sports about his role going forward.
Go out there and compete. I mean, that's the role, and being able to rebound, set screens, defend pick and rolls, and all of it. Being able to do it all. And get guys open, I think, is like the number one thing, because I think that can help our offense, getting more possessions on offensive rebounds. There's a lot that I can, help. And yeah, that's what it's been, just help us get a win.
Always been a confident guy, man. Always a guy that, has been steadfast in the production that he can give Miami, or feels that he can give Miami. And look, I think all of that stuff can buoy you. You're talking about these last 13 games, and it's a big one, man, because you look at it right now, it's going to be a claw to get to that 6th spot. Miami is in a spot where they do get Brooklyn and they do get New York coming on up. So that's going to be huge, obviously. Both of them coming up next week at home. But you got some tough games coming up. Utah, who you, of course, had the New Year's buzzer beater up from Tyler Hero. Memphis, who's dealing with the John Morant stuff, but they are still a good team without John Morant. But a lot of matchups coming up. You got Dallas coming into town. You got Philly a couple more times, or Philly one more time. Toronto's always a dog opponent. And hell, the Magic have always been scrappy against Miami. So not an easy schedule ahead for the Heat. And then you look for Brooklyn, who I think is probably, I think people, Knicks hit a little bit of a rut there, losing 3 in a row. And we're in a bit of a dogfight with the Lakers, and they are on a West Coast swing right now. So maybe this is one of those where those are always tough, and then they come back and they got Denver in a Saturday matchup. But, the Heat have got to, in some way, shape, or form, and how you could expect any of this, I don't know, just because of how the season has gone. You need some kind of a win streak in here. You do. You can't just be going 2 up, 1 down the entire rest of the way if you're expecting to get to that 6th spot. And, if you do get to that 6th spot and you are able to set yourself up with a playoff series against the Sixers, man, I think out of all things being said, you like that series. If you're going to start out of the gate, even if you win the play-in, if you're going to start this thing off against Brooklyn and Boston, it's a hell of a way to enter into the playoffs. You go from having to face one of these teams in the Eastern Conference Finals to come out of the gate and have to start your playoff series. It's not easy. It's not easy. If you were to, it's why getting through to those 3-6 matchups against Philly or 4-5 against Cleveland, or if that ends up being, New York by some kind of a run, that is the more ideal scenario. But look, man, everybody thought Brooklyn was going to fall off the face of the earth. They haven't. They've been, what have they won? They've won 5 out of their last 6. So with some decent wins in there. Beating Jokic, beating the Celtics. You can't just assume that they're going to fall off the face of the earth and this is going to be gift wrapped to you. You got to go earn it. And they got to start with these next couple of home games coming up against Utah and Memphis. So looking forward to being boots on the ground tonight. We'll bring you some stuff from the arena, content and all that. So keep it tuned to this channel, and we'll talk to you guys next time.